And I'd like to welcome all of you to the section and committee chair orientation meeting today. We have people present in the Iowa State Bar Association building here on the second floor. And then we also have attendees who are participating via the webinar. And then this will also be taped, as I understand, so that chairs of sections and committees who are not able to participate today will be able to come back and be able to watch the webinar at some future date. I really appreciate everybody's willingness this year to serve as chair of a section or committee. When you look at the State Bar Association, it's the sections and the committees that are vital to the success of the association. And it's the engagement that the committees have and the sections have with our membership that make us be an effective association for our members and for the communities as well as the courts. So thank you very much for your willingness to be a chair this next year. I'm looking forward to it. And I don't know if I said who I am. I'm Bill Boyd. I'm the chair or the president of the State Bar Association this year. But for this year, I'm really excited about the engagement of our sections and our committees. This program today, what we are hoping that you'll be receiving is information that will make you be as effective as you can be as a chair. The Bar Association provides a great deal of resources that many people serving as chair may not be aware of. And so Harry and others on the staff today will be reviewing what the Bar Association can do to support you in your efforts of serving as chair. And so with that, I think we'll kick off the program. But I thought, as right before we do that, if we could go around the room and have people introduce themselves and tell us what committee or section you're a chair of. And Harry, should I pass this?
You can, but
okay.
I don't think it's relevant to the.
Well, I'll go ahead and start back here, and then that way we'll work forward. I'm Dwight Dinkler. I'm the executive director of the Iowa State Bar Association, and I'm very pleased to see everybody here this morning, as well as the individuals that are on the internet with us. Jim, you want to introduce yourself? Jim Carney, Legislative Counsel for the Iowa Bar.
I'm Melissa Higgins. I'm the communications director for the Bar Association.
Jim Carney,
So if there are any questions that you have or you're just not sure of something after today's presentation, feel free to contact myself, and we'll also highlight a few other key employees throughout the morning. You'll see a little information in there about the organizational structure, so if you're curious as to who those members of that administrative committee are, that is listed there, as well as a list of the current Board of Governors are listed. And then lastly, there is a list of all of the committee and section chairs. And we felt that it was important for you to have access to communicating, obviously, with other committee chairs or section chairs, as legislative items will start to pop up here in the near future, and you may have to communicate with other committees and sections in regards to figuring out any conflicts that the legislation might present. So that information is in there. Then we provided you some membership statistics. Corporate documents, we put those in there so that you understand the bylaws and how the organization functions. And then there is the budget that you'll find under the financial information. And I'll touch base on that throughout the presentation. Legislative information, so if you forget anything that Jim Carney tells you today, you'll be able to go to the legislative tab and hopefully pull up that information. The same as with our communications when Melissa speaks with you. And then meetings, planning meetings, and continuing legal education, CLE events. All of that information is in this guide, so you can always reference back to it after today's meeting if you have any questions. So, and speaking of questions, at any point in time, feel free to ask today. We try to keep this kind of an open forum and allow free flow of questions and answers. So what are your responsibilities? And I apologize to the committee chairs because I have sections. It's not just sections. This is sections and committees, and I just now caught that. The one responsibility that we ask is that you convene regular section and committee meetings. We hope that that's quarterly so that you can at least report to the Board of Governors, because that is the second step. Is you have a quarterly meeting and then you report to the Board of Governors. And back in your meetings tab, there's a sample of what the reports look like. It's not overly burdensome. If you've met and you just share a few summary points of what your discussion items were and so on and so forth. If you have action items, there's assistance with you, that form to help you get that on the Board of Governors agenda. These quarterly meetings can be here at the bar office, they can be off-site, they can be telephonic, or you can use our GoToMeetings account. The one thing that I would suggest, and we'll touch base when we talk about how to set up a meeting, is if you do schedule a meeting, make sure you make bar staff aware. First and foremost, bar staff will take care of it for you. If you set the date and how you want to have the meeting, we'll send out the notification and everything of that nature. But if for some reason you set your own meeting, please make sure we're aware of it, because when members don't know where the meeting is or what the number is, they're going to call us, and if we aren't aware of it, we can't help it. So not only the quarterly board meetings, we also request that you give us a quarterly board report. Let us know what your committee or section are up to. And there's a variety of reasons of that, so that we can share it with other committees and sections so they can see if there's any overlap and maybe groups can work together. It allows us to plan budgetary. If we know that you're working on a project that will have a financial implication, we can plan appropriately for that. And as I said, there's a couple back under the meetings tab. You'll find some sample board reports from prior years and what the board report is, the expectations look like. Typically, our board meetings are held in June, September, December, and March. Occasionally, you will see a little fluctuation where we might have the fall meeting will perhaps fall in early October, just depending on the schedules of all involved. And new that we're going to try to do this year that we haven't done in years past is we're going to try to set up a quarterly chair conference call. And President Boyd will lead that call and just have a call-in number so that committees and section chairs can call in and share what they're doing, concerns that they may have with the president. And it will give you an opportunity to share with the other committees and chairs. So once again, if there's overlap or an opportunity to work together, you will have that opportunity to do so. Bill, is there anything you need to add to that, or?
my experience, we've done this in the past. It's been helpful just understanding what other sections and committees are doing, and it may give you ideas for your own section or committee. And then also it's an opportunity to provide further information from you to you as to what's going on with regard to the Bar Association and how that may impact your section or committee.
Additional section responsibility is legislative assistance, and Jim Carney will go into much detail about this. A lot of times this starts at the section level. Legislation starts there, and that's part of our affirmative legislative package. That's a longer process. I'm not going to talk about timelines and things of that nature because Jim will mention those in his discussion. But also we need your input when legislation arises that we didn't plan on, and we need feedback from the committees and sections on that legislation. So we'll send out information to you as well as a legislative committee that you have, a subcommittee that you will hopefully have appointed early on in your year to help handle these situations. So we'll talk about that a lot more detail when Jim Carney takes the mic. And then as far as additional section responsibilities and committees, we ask that you try to put on continued legal education. And it's a huge part of what the Bar Association does. I think we host over 65 events annually, a good portion of those live events. Now with the bar headquarters, we can host even the smallest of events. It used to be when we would plan a continued legal education, you had to hit a critical mass before it made sense cost-wise, because if you're going to the Marriott or something of that nature, you had significant overhead. But now with the bar building here as one of our major assets, you have access to, if it's a 10-person meeting, then it's a successful meeting. So keep that in mind. And once again, we'll talk a little bit more in detail on that. So the goal is we ask each section and committee to try to put together 4 hours of continued legal education. Most meet that, with a full day seminar, it's taken care of. I will also tell you that the most successful CLE that we have today is webinars. It's convenient for members. It's statewide distribution. And also for you as a committee chair or section chair, it's probably the easiest to plan, because rather than to have to go locate 7 individuals to talk on 7 different topics to fill an entire day, you have to find one friend that you can leverage and twist their arm to speak on a topic, and you've got an hour of CLE presented. We'll talk about the different roles and who does what when it comes to CLE when we cover the CLE in depth. But so our CLE consists of in-person, telephonic, webinar, streaming, much like what we're doing today. We're streaming this meeting out to others. And then we also have the ability to record every hour of CLE that we provide so that members can watch that at a later point in time. As far as publications, wanted to point out this is another area that we hope our sections and committees assist with is trying to either update or create a manual or a publication that our members can use. And I highlight, and it's not to call out anybody, that's not the intent here, although it might seem that way. Here's a few of our manuals that are kind of woefully out of date, and we'd love to see somebody take the lead to update. We were very successful in this last year in that the business law section created a new manual, and we have a 2018 version of the business law manual. We have a 2018 version of the probate. 2000 real estate, for the first time in 16 years, updated their manual. We now have a 2019 real estate manual. And we find that these are great resources to our members. Probably most importantly, they're great resources to our younger members who are now more than ever going out, opening their own firms and need more guidance today than they probably did 25 years ago. So we would encourage, if you have manuals, to update them. If you don't have a manual, give it some consideration. We also have some brochures that we'll share with you, on our Find a Lawyer site. Our Find a Lawyer site, for those that haven't visited it, I would encourage you to do so. It's no longer just a directory of attorneys. This is a directory of resources and attorneys. The whole purpose is to educate the public and push them then to an attorney, make them understand that, hey, this is more complex than I believe it to be, than I believed it to be. I need an attorney. So we educate them with the pamphlets. We have brochures out there. We have short videos. And so if you have any ideas for any content you would like to add to help the public, we're happy to assist you with getting those produced and updated, and most importantly, put out on the website to educate the public. Along that lines of brochures, something new that we added that we started last year and we're continuing with a monthly is what we're calling a People's Law School. So if you have a topic that is a hot topic, we would encourage you to contact us and we could help you put together a People's Law School. One that we've done a great deal on is elder law. It was an idea of mine. I had a mother-in-law who was sick and has MS, and we had to put her in a care facility, and it was a hell of a process. So I thought, you know, I'm not the only one with aging parents. This is something that the public needs to understand. And so we had somebody come in and talk about Medicaid, and we have 60 to 70 people showing up here at the bar office to become educated on the law. Once again, the purpose of those is to educate them enough to make them understand that it's a complex issue, that we don't want to try to go this alone and make mistakes. So we would encourage you, if you have any ideas or you know of any hot topic of that nature, please bring it to our attention, and we'll help you promote that through the People's Law School.
Are those recorded?
We started recording them, yes. It's a growing, the first one we did not, the second one we did not, because and then we started broadcasting them. So it's now not only going to be here at the bar office, we're partnering with county bar associations to have them put on a local event. We'll then broadcast it to that event, but we ask them to have local attorneys there to answer questions to the public that might be present. Ultimately, the hope will be, Scott, is to take them to where they can watch them straight from home if that's their choice as a public. So it's something that we've done about 4 of now, been somewhat successful, and we need, once again, we're going to need content, and we're hoping that our sections and committees can help deliver that content. Next thing I want to talk about is listservs/forums, and you've probably heard about our Engage system. About a year ago, we launched Engaged. What Engage is it's basically a home page for every committee and every section, so that you can share documents, share comments, questions, and so on and so forth. We used to have straight listservs where you would pose a question. That question would be obviously emailed out to everybody, and everybody who chose to could respond. The concern with that was we were having people bail out on it because it was an all or nothing. And if you're on the probate section, you could get 40 emails a day through the probate listserv as it was. Now with the Engage, and I'm going to go a little bit into detail here, this is what the Engage system looks like. If you go to the bar website, there's a logo there that says Engage. Every committee, every section, and every section council has one. And sorry to the probate chair who is here, but I'm putting your section, highlighting your section because they're very active. Unfortunately, we only have about 4 sections that are active, and I'm hoping, and I guess I'm challenging this group to make them more active so that members have more resources where they can go and ask questions of experts in the arena. So what you see here is basically the homepage of the probate trust and estate planning section. It welcomes, there's a welcome letter from the chair that we help write. And then the beauty is it's a form and a listserv. So if you like listservs and you want emails sent to you, you simply send an email. For instance, this listserv email address is iowa-probate@connectedcommunity.org. You send an email to that address. It actually logs you into the system based on your email, posts it, and each individual now has the ability to dictate how they receive their messages. If you like real time, you like the listservs the way they are, you leave your setting at real time, you'll get an email every time there's a post. If you prefer to get them at the end of the day, I only want one email about all the activity that occurred. At the end of the day, you'll get one email if you set yours up as daily digest. So each individual has the ability to dictate that. You can also say, I don't want listservs. I don't want emails. I get too many emails. I'll go look at them when I want to. And that's what you can do as well. And I'm going to actually launch. So here's the Engage, and the real beauty is when you log into Engage, you see content that's related to you. You don't see content from the probate section if you're not a member of the probate section. You don't see content of the real estate section if you're, so when you go here, you're getting specific content. What's nice is it will show you the latest discussions, so you can come straight to the website, see what the latest discussions are, any announcements that we have as a bar association. This is where we'll put your upcoming events, and so on and so forth. The other thing is this, I'm gonna go here to the communities, go to sections. This is where it will list all sections. So you can go view other sections. You won't be able to view that restricted content, the discussion forum. That is for the section members only. But you can see who the chair is, who all the members are, and so on and so forth. So I always pick on probate because they are one of our most active sections. So I'm gonna go here to probate. You'll see the welcome letter as I discussed, and here are 17 hours ago, somebody requested a referral. Once again, if you are set up as real time, I'm going to show you how that as well. Once you've logged in, you have your profile settings. You can go to my email settings. And I would encourage you to do this. Log in and set your profile up. And then down here are all the groups that you belong to. And you can select whether you want real-time or daily digest. So there are some that I like to monitor, so I stay involved, and I want a real-time email because I'm on every section and every committee, just so that we can monitor that things are operating correctly. So don't ever say anything bad about Harry on those section listers, because I will know. So anyway, but you can see that we can set those up as daily digest or real-time. So you get one email at the end of the day, all communications. The other beauty is if you belong to multiple sections, you can go here and you can select a consolidated daily digest. So if you're real estate, family law, and probate, what it will do is at the end of the day, rather than giving you 3 daily digests, it will give you 1 digest of all 3 of those communications for the day, broken down by topic and practice area. So it's a really nice feature that you have access to there. One thing that I would also encourage you to do is when you go in to update your profile, put in biographical information, update your picture. Some of you, I've done that, because then when you're making posts and you're making comments, members see who they can kind of put a name to a face and so on and so forth. So once again, you have those as sections, but then as section council, so you will have your 12, 13 member section council. We've also created a page for every section council. So this is where you can hold discussion, post documents to share with one another, rather than always just sending them via email, because the problem with sending them via email, I delete the email, I got to go look for it. If you use the Engage system, people can always come back here at any point in time to see the communication. Yes, sir.
Here, do you guys have a handout that says how to set up email digest and all that? Because every year somebody complains to me that the bar algorithm serves, and I try to explain, you can still go get it.
Yeah, we actually have a video that if you were to go to the Engage, the help here, there's a 2-minute video that I set up just to teach people exactly how to do that. Because you're absolutely right. I hear still to this day, I miss the old listservs. Well, if you miss the old listservs, they're still there. What's also nice is there's an app that you can download, and there's instructions on that. The beauty of the app is it gives you a directory of the entire bar association. You can go on there, and if I want to see who's on the section right from my phone, I can see who's on the section. If I'm actually driving to somebody's location, I can hit their address, and it will pull up my map on my phone and start taking me there. If I want to call them, I click on their phone number, it launches the phone and calls them. So it's really a great service. The problem of it is we have to continue to educate the members how to use it, and we're trying. So anyway, here's your section council. So obviously section is for the probate section, it's approximately 1,100 members. If you go to the probate section council, this is more restrictive, and it's only to the section council. So this is where you can post meeting notices. You can see this is the one. We are in the process of updating all of these. It is our year-end change, so bear with us. We may need another week to get everybody's updated, but since I was using this one for demonstration, Christine's information is updated. We'll push out information, upcoming events. I just posted one here, committee chair orientation, just to show you how that works. You click on that event, you hit add to calendar, it will add it to your calendar. I mean, so it's really a robust system. We just need to get members to be utilizing. What's also nice about it is it archives all of these discussions. So in the past, you know, if you got an email from the real estate section and you say, oh, I remember somebody talking about that, but I don't have it, you couldn't go find it. Now, if you were to just go up here and type in the search and you type what you're looking for, it's going to pull up that article or that email communication that you would not have saved. The real beauty of it is it not only searches real estate. If you belong to probate, it will search both of those databases at the same time and pull up all that content. So it's just another nice resource for members to have as well. So that's a real quick scenario of the Engage system. But as chairs, we're hoping that you take the leadership role and you use it. Most importantly, if you see that somebody posts a question, answer the question. Because if you take the time to post a question and nobody responds, you're not going to come back and post another question. And I guess that's what I'm saying is the way we get critical mass with the probate, real estate, criminal, and family is people post questions and they get 10 responses. So it really becomes a great resource. But if you post a question, nobody responds, what resource is it? So we would encourage you not only to post the questions, but don't be afraid to post a planted question that you already know the answer to so somebody can respond, just to create that energy and remind our members that that it exists. So that's enough about Engage. Any other questions about Engage itself? You'll see us continually use it more and more as well. That's how we will communicate. Now, do I have two of these open? There we go. And I think with that, I promised Jim Carney, he has a deadline. So I promised Jim we'd get him on at 10:30, and I'm 2 minutes late, but I'm as close as we're going to get. So Jim, would you like to take over, and we'll take a break from what I was presenting? And
there's coffee and soft drinks, and water, and croissants and other pastries over close to where Margaret's standing. So help yourself at any time.
And I'd like to introduce Jim Carney, who is the Bar Association's legislative counsel. And Jim and his team, and Doug Strike is right here, part of the team, worked really hard for the Bar Association, particularly with the sections, because our sections work on proposed legislation, and each year we have an affirmative agenda in terms of legislation that we're proposing be adopted in Iowa. And once the sections get the proposal done, then we kind of turn it over to Jim, and then Jim takes it from there, although there's a lot of involvement from the sections throughout the whole process, including going to the Capitol. So, Jim,
thank
welcome.
you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Bill's done all of this. He's sat out there where you are, and he's been active in the bar forever. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know that several of you go around the room that have been involved in the legislative activities of the bar previously. Some of you aren't section chairs, you're committee chairs, and so the legislative program might not have as much relevance to your work and why you're here this morning. But I think it still might be of interest to you to have a good understanding of what we do and how we spend our time in representing the bar. And to follow up on a couple of comments that Harry made, you know, I've had the privilege of representing the bar since 1975, before you were born, right, Tyler? So anyway, the only reason I mention that is this. I, during that time, have attended, you know, annual meetings across the country of the American Bar Association, and we are without a question looked upon as being one of the premier bars in the country. Certainly as a voluntary bar, we are. We're known for doing more with less staff than anyone. You look around the country and see what other bars have in terms of staff, much more staff, maybe more obviously resources because of their size. But we've done stuff and been leaders in many, many areas. IOLTA, for example, that was the Iowa Bar is the first bar to have a lawyer's trust account program. It's amazing what we have done. Dwight has been with the bar since 1998. Harry's been with the bar since 1994. Doug joined me in 2013. And Jenny Dorman, who's not able to be here this morning, started a couple years ago. So we've got a lot of longevity in the staff. Harry and I were talking this morning. When he started in 1994, he had hair. No, not really. I think Harry's been bald forever. But he had no kids, and now he's got a wedding coming up. So that's what's happened since Harry's been here. What do? We attend all Board of Governors meetings. We go to section council meetings. If you're having a section council meeting where legislation is going to be discussed, Doug, Jenny, or myself will try to be there. We meet with the officers all year around. We meet with other associations on behalf of the bar. We work with bar staff and the officers, obviously, constantly. We attend meetings with the judicial branch, and there are always a dozen or so of those each year. Do a lot of interim work. When the legislature's not in session, they have interim studies that go on, and we attend those meetings and work with the legislature during the interim. We obviously lobby, and part of that, the fundraising has been unbelievable, and LawPAC has been a tremendous vehicle for us to attend a lot of fundraisers. We go to about 125 to 150 fundraisers a year. Believe me, that's a lot of little weenies and cheese and crackers. And very time consuming. During the session, we of course are up there every day, Doug, Jenny, and I. The activity is very brisk up there. It goes very quickly. It seems like the speed in which legislation takes place is a lot quicker than what it was. When I first started, you had days, if not weeks, of notice before a subcommittee meeting. You knew what was going to be happening. Now they post subcommittee meetings electronically. You might not know until late the night before that a subcommittee meeting is going to take place on a bill that we're interested in. It's not unusual for us, because of the breadth of the subjects that we cover, for there to be 2 and 3 meetings at a time, where we've got a family law bill being considered, a corporate law being considered, a probate bill being considered, criminal law, and all these subcommittees are taking place. So we try to attend all of those that we're registered on, and certainly bills that we're really actively following, either supporting or opposing. Subcommittees are composed of usually 3 legislators, 2 in the majority, 1 from the minority, or 5, possibly 3 in the majority, 2 in the minority. And we always try to meet with people before a bill is being considered, or communicate with them in some manner. Today, mostly email. And we really rely upon you, your legislative committee, which we'll talk about, to give us the direction on where we should be on those bills. Should we be supporting them, opposing them, or trying to get amendments on the bills? And if so, what language? Tyler has been very, very active in the criminal law section, and they were always feeding us stuff, feeding us information before committee meetings, and really reliant on their activity to give us direction. We'll talk about the flow chart, but the way this works is that Doug, Jenny, and I don't take a position on a bill and register on behalf of the bar until we have directions from you. The exception to that would be if the same bill is introduced this year that was introduced last year, we have the history and knowledge behind it that we hate a certain type of bill, we like a certain type of bill, we might register for or against that type of legislation, but otherwise we're completely reliant upon you to give us our direction. And after we hear from you, your legislative committee, then we'll register for support or monitoring. From the subcommittee level, the bill would go to the full committee. In the House, we have 21 members normally on a standing committee. In the Senate, 15. We always try to meet with those members before a bill comes up as well, or communicate with them again today, primarily by email. We have position papers that are prepared that we present to them. Again, a lot of that is being reliant upon your section's legislative committee and what information they provide us. Then if the bill gets out on the calendar, we start working a bill for or against, counting votes and doing a vote count, which is very laborious and takes a lot of time. I guess additionally, in terms of an oversight of what we do legislatively, we always meet with leadership on both sides, the governor's office. We start the year out, by the way, with a meeting with the governor and legislative leadership when the Chief Justice gives the State of the Judiciary address. We meet with them, sit down with them, and tell them what our legislative program is going to be at that time. Give them a list of the bills we're going to be working on, what other priorities we have, and that kind of sets the tone of the session for us as we go ahead during the session. We host an annual lawyer legislator dinner, which is a very unique event in that we have our profession, and we have this special dinner for the lawyers only, lawyer legislators, and it's a very, very popular event, very well attended. Usually have 100% attendance at that. And George has been to lawyer legislator dinners. Doug used to go. Dwight used to go. Bill's been hosting them since he's been in the chairs, and it's an evening where we can have a really good conversation with the lawyers who are serving and talk to them about legislation. We host a breakfast at the bar meeting here, and we invite all 150 legislators. It's a very popular event. It's an opportunity for our Board of Governors to meet with legislators and talk to them, and it's usually in the spring at a very key time of when the budget's moving along. And we're very active in the budget. We have any number of issues that come up, the court's budget, judicial salaries, indigent defense budget, which, by the way, we're very pleased that this was a year where we were able to obtain a small increase, but very significant increase in court-appointed attorney fees. Just $3 an hour. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're doing the work, if you're one of 600-700 lawyers in the state who are doing the work, who take court appointments, that meant about $1.7 million, $1.8 million more in payments to attorneys who take court-appointed counsel cases. We always have a very active affirmative program, which Bill mentioned, and that's where you really fit in. It's your sections that come up with the ideas of what legislation needs to be enacted. And if you go to the tab, finally in your notebook there on legislation, you'll see at the second or third page, it's a memo to the new section chairs. That second paragraph, if your section is going to propose affirmative legislation, we would really like to have it by the September board meeting. That does not give you much time between now and then to formulate your legislative proposals. But if you can come up with them by then, that's great, because we can then get it up to the Capitol, to Legislative Service Agency, LSA, for drafting, and you'll be surprised how long it takes the bill to get through LSA. It takes a long time to get those bills put into proper format. If you can't get it done by the September board meeting, you can make your proposals at the December board meeting, but you just have to understand that that gives us very little time to work on them and get them through LSA. There have been years where we've gotten a bill at the December board meeting and it doesn't get out of drafting until after the funnel. I mean, so it's very important that we get the drafts as soon as possible. That third paragraph there, you should appoint 3 section members to serve on your legislative committee. These should be people that care about legislation, who you trust and believe will pay attention to the bills and respond to the bills, in a timely manner, because we are reliant upon their feedback, whoever's on your legislative committee. Some section chairs want to be on that committee and be included in that committee. Some sections actually want the entire section council to receive copies of the legislation and have the whole section council give feedback. It's your choice on how you handle that. But try to find people who you think will be responsive and do a good job of representing your section and giving us feedback. Probably the next thing would be to thumb back through. There's a chart. It's a sideways chart. It's green. It's important, I think, to just mention this and briefly discuss it. As I mentioned earlier, we don't take positions just on our own, and it all starts with the legislative committee. And you think about this, Bill, as an officer, the officers, the entire association is going to rely upon your section legislative committee to give us direction on where we should be on a bill. Legislative committee takes the position and they report that to us. If there's dissension among the committee or the section as to where we should be, you guys have to referee that. The flow chart basically works you through that. And if the section council can't get it figured out, then it would be referred to the administrative committee of the bar, and ultimately, if necessary, to the board of governors. We do get involved in issues where 2 sections might be opposed to one another. The family law section might be in disagreement with probate section. Criminal law section might be in opposition to the litigation section. And then we have to figure out a way to referee that. We have even, on some issues that are very contentious, had special board meetings, usually by phone, if necessary. But you should know, the takeaway from this is that there is this process. We follow this very carefully. We've learned over the years that we have a very diverse membership, and some members, don't understand how we can take a position on a bill. Now, how can you do that? I disagree with that. Well, we do it because we've worked it through the process, and the association speaks, on behalf of the association and not just one lawyer. So that protects us, protects the officers, it protects the Board of Governors in terms of how we take positions on legislation. I think the key message, just kind of to conclude, is that we hope that you will get a legislative committee appointed quickly. Let us know who they are so that we can start communicating with them and you if you want to be a part of that. If you ever have any questions about legislation, let us know. We are always looking for a way to, I call it, Dwight knows we call it, to build a better mousetrap and to work better on behalf of the bar. If you ever have a question about legislation, what's going on, feel free to contact us anytime. Sometimes you will come up with, you'll hear about something that we may not have heard of for some reason. And you may be the first report for us. We hope that doesn't happen very often because, with three of us up there talking to leadership and legislators every day, culling through the bills every day, we hopefully will be picking up on things. We follow about, keep this in mind, to understand the volume. We register on over 500 bills every year. Very difficult to follow and track them. Very, very challenging. And the reason for that is this: every section wants to be informed of bills that affect that section. Family Law Committee wants family law bills. Probate wants all the probate bills. Criminal law wants all the criminal bills. And so you multiply that times 23, and we have a lot of interest in legislation. Bill, you might remember from the last board meeting, that survey that we did, legislation was maybe the number one concern of the association members?
We did a survey of our membership. We had over 500 people respond, and the breakdown on the responses we have by generation. Most of the generations saw legislative work of the Bar Association as being one of the top activities of the Bar Association in terms of reports.
So, that gives you an idea. You do have a very, very important job as it relates to the legislative arena. First of all, your affirmative bills, we've talked about that. Try to get them to us by September possible, if not December. And get people appointed to your legislative committees who are going to be responsive and interested. With that, Doug is here. Doug, you have any comments? Anything you want to throw in there?
Hello. A consensus position out of your committee chairs, an email from a committee chair where we haven't seen the conversation, and it's coming from the committee chair saying the business law section thinks this. We'll reply back, is that the consensus? And we'll reply back to the entire legislative committee again. That's great, but is this the consensus position? Okay, number one. Number two, we hate the bill. Okay, we're Doug and Jim from the Iowa State Bar Association. The criminal law section hates this bill. Why? Because they hate the bill. You're the experts in the field. We need a legislative committee that gives us the tools we need. Now, some of them are patently obvious why we hate the bill, but more times than not, we're going to need something specific on that. So as you're picking your committee chairs, helping us get actual information to base our comments would be helpful. Jim said we also follow the rules. Let's see. When you're having a meeting and you're going to talk about legislation, we're happy to be there. We need to know about it. If you have a section council meeting and we don't know you're having a section council meeting, it's awful hard for us to be on the phone or travel to that meeting to provide insight. This has been said already 3 times. When we're in February and a session is going and you still haven't given us a legislative committee, it's very difficult for us to do our jobs, and we're using your section committee from last year to get those. You're all here, you're the ones who are going to do things perfectly, but it's not unheard of. In fact, we were sending out emails in December to over 50% of the sections that had yet to anoint their legislative council. You have an option when you fill out the form on whether or not you want to be on the legislative committee. Please check the box to say you want to be on the legislative committee. That way you're getting the emails, and if you have a section chair that is out of town and all of a sudden isn't responsive or has a 3-week trial, and there's no conversation going on that piece of legislation, it gives you an opportunity to see that that's going on, and you also have a better feel for the things that are going through that. We've got a software package that helps track everything. When you're setting up and you're reviewing things, and this, after I say it, we'll say it should go without saying, refresh the recollection of all of your members on your section council and your legislative committee that they are there representing their profession and what's best in the interest of the state. This is not about a particular case. This is not about a particular client. This isn't because I only represent insurance companies and this is what's best for us. They need to step back, and they're representing the Bar Association, just like on that spreadsheet or flow chart. They need to be able to step back and work through that. And that really becomes apparent when you're looking at conflicts. We've had some with construction law litigation recently, the transfer on death deeds, where we're dealing with probate and real estate have differing opinions. We're eventually stepping back to where the Board of Governors has looked at that and said what's best for Iowans and the profession. That's what we should be doing. Absent that, I'm sure there's other things that you'll have questions on. We're available 24/7. It seems like one of us is awake at least 22 hours of any given day, unfortunately. So don't hesitate to reach out to us by cell phone or email or text or whatever and ask away. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug, I think made the point. The feedback we get is hopefully kind of professional in nature and well articulated, and give us the ideas, real ideas of why we should support or oppose a bill. Sometimes we just get, who the hell came up with this shitty idea? Well, that doesn't help us go to a subcommittee and say, hey, we're not going to go to the subcommittee meeting and say, who the hell came up with this shitty idea? That doesn't work very well. So anyway, I think you got the message. Want to thank you for being involved in the association. Thank you for your time and effort on behalf of the association. Our members out there are reliant upon the way we're set up and relying upon your work. So good luck with it. And if we can help you in any way, let us know. I know the bar staff will do anything they can to help you. They're really great at what they do. Dwight, Harry, and everyone that works with them do a fantastic job. So thank you for your service. Bill? May I be excused, Mr. President? Okay.
Okay, just keeping things moving forward. As Jim identified, one of the screen we have up now is some keys to your success as a committee or section chair. And I think we've outlined, some of the responsibilities, but those responsibilities don't all have to fall on you as the chairperson. So Jim mentioned about creating a legislative subcommittee. Obviously, the purpose of that, I think he likes to see that in the 3 to 5 person range. And the purpose of that is he will build them into his system. So every time a bill is flagged as something for real estate, it will go to the real estate subcommittee for input. And if the real estate subcommittee can't come to a conclusion on a bill, then they'll escalate it to the entire section council, and if need be, to the entire section. But the fact is legislative moves so quickly nowadays that Jim needs individuals to respond in a timely manner. So who you put on that subcommittee is really key. I don't think it's overly burdensome. Occasionally there will be 1 or 2 sections a year who get a real heavy lift, and there may be some burdens, specifically when there's a conflict between two sections. Then it becomes a negotiation between the two sections to see if they can't resolve it, and there's a little more work and effort. But the legislative subcommittee is one key to your success. The other is a communications / technology section, and once again, that's to kind of oversee the engage and get people using it. Obviously, if you have 200-300 members in a section and you're not seeing any communications come over the listserv, sometimes you start to question, are they out there? Are they paying attention? Are they listening? So we would hope that communications technology section would use the Engage system to plant questions. No longer is a newsletter necessary. I mean, if you want to create a newsletter, I think, Margaret, your group does create a newsletter, and that's great. But you don't have to wait for the buildup of 5 or 6 or 7 articles to make it of interest. Just go to Engage, say, hey, I seen this article of interest and I wanted to share it here with the group. I mean, that's as valuable as having a regular newsletter, except for oftentimes more timely because it's going out when it's still a hot topic. So we would encourage you to make once again, a 3 to 5 person communications / technology, and then CLE. As we said, we strive to have each group put together at least 4 hours of CLE. More is appreciated as well. But it doesn't fall upon you as the chair to have to be the leader of that group as well. So if you can build these 3 subcommittees out of your section, I think you'll find it to be a less stressful and more successful year. And keep in mind that these members of these subcommittees do not have to be members of your section council. So it's an opportunity to engage even more people within your practice area or your committee. Your section council typically is, I think, 12 members and a chair is what you can have, so up to 13. But this is an opportunity that you could extend leadership positions to another 7 to 10 to 15 people that are outside that section council. So we would encourage you to build those as early in your year as possible.
Just to add, with regard to, especially with sections, some sections have other committees in place. So I know, for instance, business law has a nonprofit committee. It has a for-profit committee responsible for that different substantive aspects of business law, and those committees can be very active depending upon what's going on. I know with regard to the for-profit committee of the business law section, we've been looking at a revision to the Iowa Business Corporation Act. So that committee of the section has been meeting on a regular basis to talk about that. The nonprofit committee will meet as issues arise with regard to nonprofit issues. And the decision or recommendations made in that committee will make a recommendation to the council. And so just something to think about for section chairs is whether there are any substance committees that you'd like to have in place.
Yeah, and as just to follow up on Bill, the 3, that's just a recommendation. As you develop in your committee or your section starts to take on different activities, if you want to create additional subcommittees, we're supportive of it. If you have subcommittees that are active enough that you feel like they need their own Engage page so that they can start sharing documents and having conversations amongst the group, just get a hold of any staff member and we'll put you in touch with the right people and we'll make sure that happens and we can facilitate that for you. So just moving on, a few key ISBA policies that we wanted to point out so that everybody understands some of the responsibilities is when it comes to joint CLE sponsorship. We do approved CLE sponsorship, for instance, with Drake or the University of Iowa in a combination with a various committee or section. We just ask that those are brought forth to the leadership team so that we can, a lot of times those get approval from the Board of Governors or from the administrative committee. There's a lot of CLE opportunity out there. And we want to make sure that we're partnering with the right people. But more importantly, we do have some kind of guidelines that we want to make sure that when we do partner, that we have some control over not just the delivery, but the pricing and everything of that nature. We had one bad incident as probably 10 years ago, where we partnered with another group and they ended up marketing it cheaper to their members than to our members. And that is something that as a voluntary bar association that we find to be taboo. We want to make sure that if we're putting our name on it and we're partnering, we want to make sure that bar association members are getting the best rates. So that's one thing we like to point out is just a key policy to keep in mind. Another is section council term limits. I believe that the section term limits are 6 years on a section council, so there are 2 3-year terms that you can have. So a lot of times you, as a chair, you may have seen somebody that we didn't reappoint, and we don't want you to be offended that we didn't reappoint them, and we understand they might have been a worker, and we may need to find a different way to get them involved so that they can stay engaged. But it's strictly a bylaws issue that a member can only be on a section council for 6 years. Then they have to step down for 1 year before they can come back onto that section council. So that's something to keep in mind. Once again, we'll talk a little bit more about CLE, but we always want to remind our chairs that contract execution, so if you are working on a CLE and you're working with a hotel or a venue or something like that, first of all, we would encourage you to use our staff. That's what we're here for, is to make those arrangements and do that for you. Christy's great at that, and Lisa as well. And so don't sign contracts. Make sure they come to us. We have some basic provisions that we will add to make sure that they're meeting our minimum standards. As you can imagine, most hotel contracts are in favor of the hotel and not the organization who's visiting or using their services. So things of that nature. And then Melissa will get into this a little more detail, but representing or speaking on behalf of the ISBA, that is, even as a chair, that is something that we still ask that you do not do unless you have been asked to speak on behalf of the ISBA by the leadership, usually the president or Dwight, our executive director. And oftentimes we will reach out to you when Melissa gets an inquiry from the media or something of that nature. We try to put a volunteer expert in that arena rather than try to dictate those responses from the top. So just be cautious when dealing with any of these issues. Wanted to talk a little bit about finance. It's a little different for sections and committees. Committees, you're given a budget a lot of times based on what your usage was last year. And as far as sections, the section dues are $20, and for every member that you have in a section, you have $20 to spend to operate the functions of that section. That doesn't mean that that's the money that you're limited to. We do have some special funding opportunities. The Board of Governors, we put a line on. We know that every year that something is coming through that we could not budget for. So we actually have an unbudgeted line item with a certain amount of funds set aside for those projects or those requests. You also have access to the foundation. So if you have a product or service or an idea that goes beyond your budgeting expectations or limitations, we can go to the Board of Governors for additional funding or to the foundation for a grant. And I would encourage you to think outside of the box. We're always, as a voluntary bar association, we're always looking for additional hooks that make the lives of our members better. That's kind of our internal motto is helping Iowa lawyers succeed. That's bar staff's internal motto, is helping Iowa lawyers succeed. So if there's some big idea that you think is big, don't be afraid to share it. Who would have thought 15 years ago when somebody approached us about providing free legal research to every member of the Bar Association was a doable project? Well, we're doing it. We've been doing it for 11 years. So no idea is too big. Another example of that is last year we launched our own child support calculation program. We know that there's a competitor out there that we have about 1,000 members in our in our family law section, and many of them are purchasing this product for $300 a year. If you do the math, that's close to $250,000 to $300,000 a year our members are spending on a child support calculation program. So we decided to put our efforts into it. Let's see if we can't create our own, and we did. We now have it launched in the hot docs. It was a soft launch because it launched right after everybody had to renew their product. So we're kind of tweaking it, making it better as every day goes on. And but that's the kind of service that we feel like we need to provide as a bar association. So if you, in your efforts as a chair, if you run across some idea or something of that nature, please share it, and don't think that financial limitations will necessarily keep you from making that come to fruition. As far as expenses, the expenses of a section or a committee, the bulk of those expenses are to help you run that section or committee. There will be expenses like telephone conferences. We would encourage you that if you have in-person meetings, purchase people's lunch. I mean, if you have those meetings here, we make it easy. We purchase those lunches for you. Our staff will take care of all those responsibilities. If you need, for whatever reason, you want to bring an expert in to talk on a topic, I mean, budget money can be used for those functions as well. We would just ask that prior to making any major commitment that you come to the bar leadership and you let them know what you're thinking and get approval. But the funding is there to help you take care of the business at hand for your committee or section. Dwight, anything you want to add to the finances or the expenses or anything of that nature?
No, not really. We have the guidelines, but as Harry mentioned, if you have a speaker or something, you have a really important project that you want to do, don't hesitate to contact us, and we'll visit with bar leadership and see if we can make it happen.
What we've seen is a big push as of late is after the conclusion of a seminar or something, they've decided to have kind of a cocktail hour, and that's perfectly acceptable for funding of a section. Now we're not suggesting that you go down to Peachtree and just have a get together, the 5 or 6, but if you have meetings and things of that nature, the food and things of that nature are expected to come out of your section and committee budgets. Here's where we'll go into the detail. We already jumped to Jim Carney. We'll talk about the resources available. We'll talk about our meeting planning resources, continuing legal education, and then communication as well. This is where I'm going to introduce Lisa Hansen. She probably won't come up and speak, but she'll share any thoughts. But Lisa Hansen is in the back of the room. Stand up, Lisa, so everybody knows who you are. Lisa is our meetings planner, so anything to do with setting up a meeting, that's who you want to get to know, that's who you want to call. The fact is, Lisa will make it as painless as possible for you. Each group has its own 24-hour conference calling service, so you have a number. I believe that sheet is in your book there so that you can look at it. It's basically all you have to do is share anybody who wants to join you for a meeting. Here's the number, call it at 3 o'clock, and then you as the leader have a PIN number that you put in and you start the call. The beauty of that is that bill comes to the bar office. We take care of it, take it out of your expenses. There's no expense reimbursement required by you. I would encourage you to use that number. Don't use an internal number. That's not to say that we wouldn't reimburse you, but we get some really good rates. And I'll use an example of something that occurred 3 years ago. We got an expense reimbursement from a chair who used their internal service. A phone call cost $276 because they were using like an AT&T service where it's 55 cents a minute, $2 per hookup, and so on and so forth. And that same phone call was about a $14 phone call using the bar service at 4 cents a minute. No hookup charges and so on and so forth. Keeping in mind that same service that I'm telling you about, you have access to as a member. So we went ahead and paid that fee, but I also contacted, and this was a large firm. I contacted them, said, can you please just send me an invoice, send me a copy of the proof for the audit. So when I'm audited, if that check gets pulled, that I have something to support it with. Well, they sent me their entire phone bill. I looked at their entire phone bill, and we saved them that year alone more than they were paying in dues by changing their phone service. So, I mean, it's just, I just throw that out there. Please use our service to save us money as well as save yourself money and make it easier. But also, don't disregard emails that come across when we're promoting services and assume that somebody else has already taken care of it. Because this was a large 60-person firm. Or somewhere, I mean, not just attorneys, but staff, 60 people employed using a phone service that was charging them 10 times what they could have received through the bar service. So, and I think it was just this assumption, because I called we had a board member who resided at that firm. So I called them and said, hey, I want to talk with your accounting department, see how we can save you some money. And we did. But I think everybody assumes that somebody else is already handling that. It's not always a safe assumption. So feel free to share a lot of the communications we send you with your support staff. So once again, if you're setting up your own meeting, make sure you let Lisa know. Let her know when, where, whether you're using a call-in number or whatever the case may be. For in-person meetings, we encourage you to use this facility. The bar office was purchased 12 years ago. The concept behind the bar office was to get members in the bar office so that they felt like they belonged to the bar association, and we weren't just this dues-paying association you sent your money to. And it has met, if not exceeded, every expectation we had. We went from probably having 50 people come to our office a year to 5,000 people through this building annually. So we encourage you to use not only, I mean, if you have a big meeting, you can use this space. We have 3 other conference rooms available. And just as an additional pitch, we have 2 private attorney offices if you ever just need to use an office yourself and you're in town. So that's all yours at no charge. So I already mentioned that you should use the telephone system that is in your book there. For each of you have your own. But once again, the best way for you to set up a meeting, the first thing you should do is call. Once you set a date, call Lisa Hansen. And for the most part, she'll take it from there. She'll communicate, she'll send out notification to all your members, whether it's a complete section meeting, a complete committee meeting, or a section council. She'll take care of it and send it to the appropriate people with the instructions. She'll take the RSVPs. She'll let you know who's coming, who's not, whether you're, and then you can determine quorum and things of that nature. So as I said, our purpose here is to make your job as a volunteer as easy as possible. Any questions on meeting planning or anything of that nature?
Another reminder, Gary, is Lisa is the person that will send out an email notice to all the section and committee chairs in advance of the quarterly Board of Governors meetings, give you information as to when the meeting is, where it's going to be held, but more importantly, Lisa will be asking you if you have a committee or section report for the Board of Governors. And so I really encourage you to respond to Lisa because she can get pretty angry.
Yeah. Something else, it's a good point about the quarterly meetings and getting your reports in. Another thing I want to make sure you're aware of is that you're invited to those meetings. Whether you need to speak or present to the board or not, you're welcome to attend those meetings, as well as you're welcome to, as chairs, you're welcome to attend the board dinner the evening prior. We get together. It's the only payment you get as a section or committee chair is we do try to feed you. And so those quarterly board meetings, if you're available, I would encourage you to attend not only the meeting, but the dinner the night prior as well. With that takes us into planning a CLE. This is something that becomes quite a bit more complex than just having a simple meeting. But Christy Cronin is in the back of the room there. Christy, wave your arm or stand up, one of the two, so everybody knows who you are. And Christy is our CLE coordinator, and she's been with us for many years. She's an expert in helping you set up your continuing legal education, whether it's a multi-day event, a full-day event, 1 hour on the web, or we've even helped her where speakers are in their office doing a presentation from their office and sharing it with everybody in the bar, and we help coordinate all of that. So obviously the CLE options you have are telephone, webinar, and a lot of times we'll record live CLE and put it in the online so that you can, I think you can take up to 6 hours of CLE 24/7 watching it on your own. And so we're building out that database with the same content that you're providing live or via webinars. In person, then we'll talk about the volunteer responsibilities versus the staff responsibilities. The role of a volunteer is first of all, select the date, a topic, and check with the ISBA to make sure that we don't have a conflict that day. We try not to put on multiple CLE events on the same day. Specifically, obviously, if they're being held here at the bar office, that creates quite a quandary. But more importantly is we want to make sure that every member has an opportunity to attend your event, not just your section. And so if there's another event going on, we want to try to avoid that. You pick the topics, pick the speakers, contact the speakers, and email a copy of the agenda to the bar staff. And then the next step is you show up the day of the event and you do introductions. Christy and our staff pretty much take it from there. We send out the reminders to the, we'll send out speaker forms. You know, once you've identified who the speakers are and they've committed to speak, they'll get a speaker form. We'll let them know what the dates, you know, the deadlines that they need to meet to get in outlines and things of that nature. We'll request a bio so that the day that you come to present, or you come to introduce them, you have biographical information, and that will inquire as to what kind of AV equipment is needed for their presentation. We'll also design your marketing material and brochures for the seminar. We'll market the program, whether that's in paper. A lot of times we'll send hard copy invitations to people who attended previously, to your section members, and then we'll do electronic marketing to the entire bar association in a variety of different manners. We'll do the formatting and printing of the material. We'll take care of hotel reservations and other meeting arrangements. So if it's not an event on site, we'll deal with the hotel about how the room setup needs to be, so on and so forth. As well as if a speaker needs a room, Christy will make those arrangements for that speaker, so they have a hotel room, and then direct bill to the bar association to minimize the expenses that have to be turned in by those that you have requested or you've made arrangements with. The day of the seminar, we'll have staff members on site to help direct traffic, get people registered, you know, make sure that the room setup is as expected, make sure everybody has coffee, soda available, and if there's lunch, we make sure lunch is arranged and everything of that nature. We provide every outline or registrants with an outline. A lot of times we'll provide that to them electronically anymore. Seems to be, what wasn't how people wanted them 5 years ago, but now we've gotten people transitioned to where, you know, putting them on their laptop or their iPad. So we'll communicate those electronically. And then we'll mail to registrants who do not show up. We'll send them the material. We do the follow-up. We have evaluations available the day of the event, as well as we typically will send out an electronic follow-up asking people to weigh in on the event. Once again, speaker biographical. We take care of any walk-ins that might show up the day of the event that we weren't expecting. Some ISBA CLE policies. We don't reimburse speakers for mileage except by contract. So if you're getting a speaker, we coordinate, you know, what's expected, what are they expecting. We try to avoid first class air flight and things of that nature. We'll pay for the hotel room for any speaker who travels more than 100 miles. Registration refunds, the bar association, we take care of those. So if somebody couldn't make it or they had an emergency, we take care of that, as well as we break the news to them that if you didn't use the early bird registration, you know, it's $50 more, things of that nature. We cover the expenses for panel presentations. We tried to limit those panels up to 4 people. Multiple reasons. A is if you have more than 4 people, it becomes like the Democratic debate last night where you get 1 minute of speaking time and it devalues the people on the panel. But there are some expenses related to having panels come in and things of that nature as well. And then all new, if you've had a CLE event every year, it's grandfathered in for CLE the next year, but all new. So if you wanted to start, for instance, the real estate section does not have a full day seminar. If they wanted to have a full day seminar this year, we would take that to the Board of Governors or the Administrative Committee to get approval. And then that is a standing seminar if they wish to have it each and every year. We don't run into that very often because most people have CLE in place, and it's just a matter of continuing what's been done in the past. We talked about conference calls. We encourage you to use our system. All contracts signed by bar staff. Obviously, we'll take your input. Outlines and such, we ask for 60 days prior. We try to have a member of bar staff available at all your CLEs. Only ISBA sponsored CLE. This is kind of a sticking point that we kind of get ourselves in trouble with every year. We try to only use bar communications to promote bar CLE events. So if if on our listserv, it's not our preference to have Drake post out there that Drake is having an event. We try to minimize those type of communications, obviously because it's a revenue stream. The Iowa State Bar Association, we haven't raised dues in almost 10 years, and part of that is because we have other sources of revenue that continue to come in. And so we try to protect our opportunities as much as we can. Obviously, if you have concerns or issues with any of the policies and it might be restricting you from doing something you want to do, we can take them to the executive director for override. That is it. Any questions on CLE? As I said, first, best thing you can do is talk to Christy. Just like the best thing you can do if you have an issue with a meeting is talk to Lisa. And next, I'm going to ask Melissa Higgins, our communications director, to come up here, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about communications for the Bar Association.
Great, thank you. I'm Melissa Higgins, the communications director for the Bar Association. I've been with the bar about 3 years, coming up this fall, so not as long as 1994 and as some of the other staff members, so I'm relatively new. I just want to talk just briefly about some of the things that fall within the communications department so that you are aware as the chairs of section and committees what opportunities are out there to promote some of the things that are going on in your sections and committees. So one of the main roles that I have is as the editor of the Iowa Lawyer magazine, which comes out monthly and is free to members and hopefully is at the top of your summer reading list. So we publish feature articles on members, information about programs and events that the Bar Association is putting on, and as well as obviously articles that are of interest to attorneys based on whatever their practice area is. We consider it a general interest publication for attorneys, so we try to keep the content varied every month. We don't do really specific themed issues very often because we want to make sure that when you get your Iowa Lawyer magazine every month, there may be at least one article in there that's of interest to you or all of our members. So we hope that the sections will help provide content for the magazine. We're always seeking submissions. We actually don't get that many submissions, which surprises a lot of people. It's a great opportunity for you to market yourself or your firm. I mean, we don't want it to seem too blatantly markety, but if you're writing an article, it positions you as an authority in a certain practice area and potentially could generate referrals. So there is a great reason for members to write articles, and we're always looking for submissions. So if you I would say as you start your section and committee meetings, one of the things maybe you want to identify, and maybe it's you as the chair or someone else in your section council, but someone that has an interest in writing articles or could be kind of a contact for me within your section as a way to generate ideas for stories. And either that's an article someone writes themselves, or I can help write it, or I can edit it, or we can work together. It can be collaborative. So I just need you as the chairs to kind of be the eyes and ears of what's going on in your practice area or your interest area so that the magazine can reflect what is going on in the Bar Association. So if you do have an idea for a magazine article, just get in touch with me. My contact information is on the website. We'll just kind of talk about the topic. Is it something that actually fits within the magazine? How long do we want the article to be? And when could we potentially get it done? So it's a really easy process because communications department is pretty small. It's essentially me and Steve Beckman, if you've met him. We're very flexible to deadlines. We're able to work pretty nimbly to provide content for the magazine. So it can be as simple as just a phone call, and we decide on a month and then go from there. And I can help you edit or provide any feedback that you need as you work on a draft. And then just a little note about some of the regular columns we have in the magazine. We do transition. These are actually some of the most widely read parts of the magazine we found is transitions, where people submit, and usually firms or individuals submit information about, career moves or new firms opening. We try to do a kudos section in every magazine about awards or different things, recognition for members. And then we have other regular columns, classifieds and things like that. So if there are things you're seeing as the eyes and ears of the Bar Association that might be of interest to members more widely, let me know and we can try to include that in the magazine. We also have a weekly electronic newsletter that was started in 2011, and that goes out to all of our membership on Wednesday afternoons. Basically every single week of the year. We sometimes skip for a holiday or something like that, but otherwise it's every single week. We try to keep the information very timely to what's going on, and the articles are usually very short and provide links if there's more information that's needed. But this might be of special interest to sections and committees if you have certain events going on, or you have a project you're working on and you're just looking for a little bit of coverage, or you're looking for input. Sometimes we have a committee that says, hey, we decided to do a survey about something. Can you help us promote the survey? I mean, that's a perfect thing to put in the weekly newsletter. And we actually get very good analytics on the back end of what types of articles people are clicking on, even as we can drill down as far as individual members, what stories, or what, if they're clicking on our newsletter, and where people are clicking as far as links in the newsletter. So we are able to get some data about what stories are of interest to people. And just one note, the thing that we find is the most popular item in our weekly newsletter is the Supreme Court opinions. So that's always the highest clicked on portion of the weekly newsletter. So if the process for the weekly newsletter is usually we write most of the articles on Tuesday of the week. So by Monday, at the end of the day, Monday, I like to know which articles we have. So if you have any ideas for newsletter articles, just get in touch with me again. And I can either write it or you can submit it. So as long as I have the information by Tuesday of the week, we can get it out in the Wednesday newsletter. So just something to keep in mind. And then another thing that falls within the purview of the communications department is public relations. So that involves sending out press releases about different things and being a point of contact for the media. So I write press releases about programs or events that are going on in the bar that might be of interest to the media. We also do press releases when we have leadership changeover. Kind of the biggest event that we do that does get some media traction is our mock trial tournament. So when there's state middle school and high school mock trial, we send out press releases to invite the media to come, and also about the results of that. So we try to use our media or our public relations portion of the communications department to get the word out about the good things Iowa attorneys are doing, and try to help promote attorneys in their community. So if you have an event going on or something going on within your section in committees that you want some media attention for, get in touch with me about that too. I have contact lists for across the state, various media publications, so I can assist in writing a press release or assist in sending it out, or whatever kind of makes sense depending on what's going on. Harry mentioned this earlier, but we do kind of have a strict chain of command about who can speak officially on behalf of the bar. So the president of the Bar Association is the one who usually speaks in public or in media about certain, if we have a position on a certain issue, or we have something we want to say as a bar association as a whole. The president is the one we designate to speak if Bill or whoever is the president isn't available. Usually it's one of the other officers that does it, or if we designate someone else to speak officially on behalf of the bar, then they are able to do so. But as section and committee chairs, we ask that you don't, go to your local paper and say, this is what the Bar Association believes about this, without first making sure that's, we're following the protocol of what the Bar Association actually, the position is on a certain issue. I do get pretty frequent media inquiries related to reporters looking for an attorney who can provide some background information about something going on. And most often it's for criminal cases. There's some high profile case playing out in the media, and a reporter wants somebody to provide some insight. Is this an unusual type of plea, or is this, typically how does this process go? So usually they just want someone who can speak kind of generally about this area of the law. So when I get those inquiries, my first call or email will be to you as a section chair. Hey, I got this report. I have this reporter who wants to know about this topic. Are you comfortable speaking on that? Or is maybe another member of your section council is comfortable speaking on that? So you may hear from me in those instances. It depends on what the topic is or what's going on, but often when there is some sort of a high profile case playing out, specifically a criminal case, usually we do get those requests. So it won't be a super often thing, that you get a call from me, but you may get a call from me saying, hey, do you want to speak? And if it's about, if it's you speaking from your experience, then we're fine with you speaking to the media. You wouldn't necessarily be speaking on behalf of the Bar Association's feeling about this case, but you would just be speaking more from a background perspective of, in my experience as a criminal defense attorney, this is how it goes, or something like that. So you may hear from me about those kind of things. So yeah, this just kind of summarizes that. I field those calls, and then I'll follow up to help you set up a time to meet. The one snag we run into sometimes is, if it's a media person in a specific part of the state, if it's a TV reporter, they want to speak to someone who can come in person and do an interview. Oftentimes we can't accommodate that because of our section chairs in Western Iowa, and it's an Eastern Iowa media person. So just kind of keep in mind of the members of your section council, who is in which part of the state that maybe we could direct the inquiry to. If it's a TV, or if it's a newspaper or a radio reporter, they can often do those interviews over the phone. So it doesn't matter where you're located, you can pretty easily schedule those. I also, in your binder there, in the communications tab, there's a sort of a more comprehensive guide that I put together for media inquiries, because I found a lot of the chairs or leadership or governors, they don't have a lot of experience talking to the media. Most attorneys don't necessarily, they're not out in front of, cameras all the time. So there's just some information in there that you can look at if you'd like, that talks about, interview tips and tips for after the interview, even as far as, style tips for, what looks best on camera. I come from a media background, specifically a TV media background. So I just kind of put some information together based on that experience. Another thing that falls within public relations is letters to the editor. Oftentimes we may reach out to you if there's something going on in the legislature, or another time we kind of do a very active public relations campaign is with judicial retention elections, or if there's some sort of an attack on the independence of the judiciary or something like that. We may reach out to you as leadership within the bar and say, hey, would you mind writing a letter to the editor to your local newspaper about this issue, because we feel it's it's a very important issue, and we want the Bar Association's point of view to be out there. So that's another potential way you may be involved in the Bar Association's overall public relations effort. Let's see. Oh, well, one thing I didn't mention that falls within communications as well is social media. So we have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter account, and we have a LinkedIn account that are very active. We post 3 times a day on Facebook, 10 times a day on Twitter, and once a day on LinkedIn. So hopefully everybody follows and likes our posts and helps spread that information out to their own social networks. A lot of times that grassroots spreading of information is even more effective than anything else we can do. So specifically during legislative session or again, judicial retention elections, that's often the best way for us to get news out is through social media, and then our members sharing that on their social media and just kind of spreading the information from there. So that's kind of all summarized on that slide. I think that's all I was going to cover. Does anyone have any questions about any of the publications that the Bar Association puts out or public relations efforts? No? Okay. Thank you.
All right, I think we're getting really close to the end, which is good because we're going to be well within our time allotment. The last thing that we kind of wanted to point out and is remind committee and section chairs of some of our related organizations. One is the Iowa State Bar Foundation. The Iowa State Bar Foundation, founded in 1944 as a supporting organization to the Bar Association. They're our 501c3 arm. They receive donations, and each year they provide grants between $70,000 and $80,000 annually. And I will tell you, the bulk of those grants go to bar programs. So this is one of those other funding sources that I talked about. If you had a big enough issue that it exceeds your budget limitations, we can discuss taking it to the Bar Foundation for consideration. Also, I just remind everybody that we are partners, the Iowa Lawyers Assistance Program. It's a standalone program, its own board, everything of that nature. But we are partners in a funding source for them. And the whole purpose of the Iowa Lawyers Assistance Program is to provide assistance to members and their family in need, whether that's gambling, various addictions, so on and so forth. But actually, Hugh Grady just happens to be, he's the director of that program. He happens to be here today. So. And then lastly, as I remind everybody of our Iowa Law Pack, This is our political action committee of the Bar Association. This is where the board of the Iowa Law Pack is split. And we try to, the purpose, main purpose of our funding is to encourage additional attorneys to run for positions at the Capitol. And so when you see information about LawPac or so on and so forth, you might consider making sure you're making a donation with your dues check off, but that's where the bulk of the funding comes. And with that, that brings us to a close. And I guess if there are any questions or if you have any issues or concerns after anything we've discussed today, we're happy to entertain responding to those.
I have a quick question. This is a great meeting. Did we do this last year?
I don't believe we did.
Because if I did, I wasn't there, obviously. If you had a meeting, it was great.
Yeah, I think what happened was our section committee chairs didn't get finalized until into July, so we did not have one, Joe. But
My comment is kind of a public apology, because I didn't do any of this last year. I will do it this year, Bill. But so I had conference calls and used my personal number and paid for it out of my own pocket. I served lunches at my office, didn't have them here. So I will rework the 107 number APR section. We'll do things differently, but this was an excellent presentation. So it's going to be very helpful.
thank you. Any other?
No idea these resources were.
You thought it was harder than it is.
I was doing like church policy.
Yeah.
Service.
Understood. Any other questions, concerns, or just any discussion items you want to have?
I'm just going to note 2 additional items. One is for this year, we encourage the sections and the committees to think about vice chairs. And that would be helpful in terms of somebody who can help support the chair, just in terms of the activities that your section or committee might be involved in. But it's also helpful in terms of long-range planning, in terms of succession, of who might replace you as chair when your term comes to an end. And I think that can be very helpful. So something to be thinking about, and we're encouraging you to think about that and have discussion. Yes.
Bill, is that a position that you would like to appoint if we have a person on our council?
I think typically it's done by the section or the committee. Another thing to think about in terms of your volunteer base is you have sections or committees that are much larger than your smaller committee or your section council. And so to the extent that you're looking for volunteers, we encourage you to be communicating with your group, your membership. And I think we can do that through Doodle. We have the Doodle.
Well, yeah. We obviously have Engage where you can send out the communication, but I think Bill is referring to, and this might be the tip that some of you aren't aware of, is there's a program out there called Doodle. It's for meetings planning, and it's actually one of the greatest things you can do. Instead of sending 10 emails back and forth, who's available when, doodle.com, it's free. We use it here at the bar office all the time.
And the bar can set it up.
Yep, if you contact Lisa, we can send out notification to your group, say, here are the 3 dates that we're considering and here are the 3 times. Please take a moment to click on the link and let us know your availability, and then we'll help you set the meeting from there.
So those were the 2 items I wanted to make sure we covered. Are there any other questions, comments?
All right.
I really appreciate everyone being here today, and I very much appreciate you serving as chair of your section or committee. We're looking forward to a great year and an active year. And Harry, I really appreciate your willingness to kind of lead this session today. Harry's daughter is getting married on Saturday, so he has a couple things on his mind, but he was nice enough to be able to lead our discussion today. So thank you very much, Harry.
Well, thank you. And we also want to thank those of you that joined us online. I think there's still a few of you that hung in there tough and are still with us, so thank you.